And finally, we got the main event, and I got to talk about this one, man. I feel like this decision was straight bullshit. Like, what was that? I didn't bet on Sean, so I don't have any bias or anything. But Dricus Du Plessis was missing all his strikes. Like, he was missing 90% of his fucking strikes. Like, he's coming forward windmills, missing on 9 out of 10 shots that he throws. He's landing some body kicks. He's landing some shots to the body, but really no effective head strikes except for in the fourth round, in my opinion. Sean's just picking him off, landing these counter strikes off the back foot. He had good moments too at where he was landing nice 1-2s, 3-2s, heavy. He was wobbling Dricus a little bit. Dricus was getting takedowns, but he was doing nothing with the takedowns. I mean, Sean was bouncing right back up. There was no damage. I don't understand this decision at all. I mean, even in the fifth round where you could argue, okay, it's 2-2, let's give Dricus the second round, let's give Dricus the third round, where I thought that Sean won both those rounds. You're going to give him 3 of the first 4 rounds? Like, Sean dominated the fifth. He beat the shit out of him in the fifth. I mean, that to me was another tell of, like, who's the better fighter, who won this fight, who's going to go out there and stamp it in the fifth. It was Strickland, and they still didn't give him the decision. So, man, I just think that decision was way wrong. And I don't know if I'd like to see this fight again. It wasn't necessarily like an extremely entertaining fight, but I don't think Strickland should drop that far, man. I feel like he should get one more fight, be able to get back in the title picture, because I thought that was a BS decision, man. I thought Sean won 49-46. I mean, tell me how Dricus won that fight by throwing more volume that was missing. I mean, Sean was landing more on him. He busted his face up. The takedowns were ineffective offense. I don't understand, man. Honestly, I think that's one of the worst decisions I've seen in a title fight. I know there's a lot of people that bet on Dricus, so I saw on Twitter at least that a lot of people were saying Dricus won, and a lot of media members were saying Dricus won, but I think that's either uneducated viewing or bias, because dude, I mean, he's missing all these strikes. If he's coming forward and missing, you're scoring that? Like, I truly don't understand that. Sean Strickland won that fight. Like, you could say what you want to say. I could rewatch it again, but I thought he won 4 out of 5 rounds. Like, to me, that decision was horrible. Strickland should still be the champ, and that's all I got to say about that. I mean, just ridiculous, man. Talk about shit fights. I mean, god damn, this was a title fight at 135. I mean, they should just disband this fucking division. If that's what they're going to be giving us, man, and I'm being harsh right here, but I don't really care. It's like, it is what it is. It was a horrible fight. You could tell from the first round that it was going to be a bad fight. The way that Bueno Silva came out trying to go for takedowns, you knew right away she was going to gas herself out, and Raquel Pennington, it seems like she has okay power, but she does horrible fight IQ even after all these fights. It's like she wants to clinch and not use her boxing, where she could just light this chick up and actually have an entertaining fight and maybe win some fans. She wants to clinch and have a boring-ass title fight, ruin the vibe of the card, and just fucking, I don't know, man, just a bad fight. But, I'm giving her a lot of shit, but you still got to give a shout out to Rocky. I mean, she's been in the UFC for a long time, had a ton of fights, and she just got the belt, so good for her. I don't really see her lasting long as the champ. I mean, I think if Jermaine Durandamy comes back, she could run through these girls. And I think she is making her comeback. And her versus Juliana, I mean, kind of a 50-50 fight to me. I mean, I think she could win that one. Even though I'm a Juliana fan, I mean, I bet on her versus Amanda and won on that bet. But Mayra Bueno Silva, I mean, I don't know how you get fraud checked in a title fight, but it seemed like she kind of got fraud checked a little bit, because horrible performance. I mean, gassed out. And all the deficiencies that we knew about Mayra Bueno Silva that were kind of masked by her athleticism and her finishing ability just came out in this fight, man. It just came out. It was like, couldn't stop a takedown after she got tired, kept shooting takedowns where she was putting herself in a choke and going on her back, quit and just kind of let the fight end, laying on bottom, doing nothing. Walked in a range without throwing strikes and was getting hit clean. Horrible defense. I mean, just a Mayra Bueno Silva special where people should have known. I should have known that, she was probably going to do this type of fight. So I just think it was a horrible fight. Terrible excuse for a title fight, but Raquel Pennington wins the belt. 135-pound champ right now, and we'll see what happens. And man, for this next fight, I really should have stuck on my convictions on this one, because I had a weird feeling that Magny was going to fraud check Mike Malott, and that's exactly what happened. I mean, Mike Malott was cruising for the first 2 rounds, was looking good, looking like he was going to cover the price, but third round came around, Mike Malott, he's not really someone that is known for cardio. He finishes fights fast. Neil Magny is the exact opposite. He's born to last. The guy's fucking an animal. He's not entertaining. He's not flashy, so he doesn't get that same type of credit. But he should get credit like a Jim Miller, man. I mean, this guy's been in the UFC. He's done that. He's been there winning and winning, and he's still taking out these up-and-coming prospects. I mean, Mike Malott's no joke. It's not like the guy's a bum. So he's taking him out. Finished him in that third round. I mean, kind of a really bad performance from Neil before that. And I feel like Neil's clearly on the way out, but he still had a little bit left to go in there and get that third round come from behind finish against Mike Malott. Amazing comeback. I mean, just awesome. Less than 10 seconds left in the fight, and he stops him after being dominated for the whole match. So Neil Magny does it again. I mean, this guy's just unreal. He's a straight-up beast. So shout out to Neil Magny. The guy's awesome. And, he got the job done. So Mike Malott, huge loss for him. I mean, it's a good experience. He can come back, and we could see if he could bounce back from that. He's a skilled guy, but I feel like he's always going to be kind of at the level where he's at, where he can crush, but if you put him against a guy with good cardio that's tough, that can hang around, they're always going to have a chance to beat him. So I don't know what the UFC does with him a lot from here. He's not like he's a young guy. He's a big prospect for Canada, so maybe they'll give him another couple easy wins to build him back up, but I feel like that was a big loss. I mean, if he would have won this fight, they probably would have fast-tracked him into a big matchup, maybe against a striker or someone where it was a little bit more of a favorable fight for him. But this loss kind of fraud-checked him, like I said, showed that he's not necessarily that level, so I don't know what the UFC is going to do with him a lot from here. And obviously for Magny, they're probably going to give him either a veteran matchup or they're going to give him another guy like Malott where he could try to push him back and be that gatekeeper. So Magny maintained his spot as the UFC gatekeeper. He kept his job. And who knows how much longer he can do it. But, man, the guy's freaking built for tough. And for Mike Malott, tough loss there. And we'll see if he could bounce back from that or if that's going to be the end of his kind of hype train in the UFC. And this next fight, we had another split decision win for Chris Curtis. I thought that Curtis won all 3 rounds in this. Or actually, the third round, Barrial won. But I thought Curtis won the first 2 personally. Really lackluster fight. I don't really got a lot to say about this fight. I mean, Chris Curtis bitched and complained about not being in the main event or main card for his last couple of fights, and then he goes and puts on a really shit fight in this one, so I don't think that's going to help his case in terms of getting big matchups and big-time spots on card. They did end the fight entertaining. I mean, the third round, they kind of went to war a little bit, so that was good to see, but just a lackluster fight from both guys. I feel like they're kind of gatekeepers to that top 10 at this point. Barrial kind of falls back a little bit. Curtis stays in that kind of same position, but don't really... I think these guys are going to stick around, but I don't see them getting into the title picture or anything. And Curtis, we'll see who he gets next. I mean, if you give him strikers, you give him guys that are going to go for it. He always has a chance to get the knockout. I think if you give him more of a grappling-based fighter at this point, someone that can clinch, seems like Curtis is getting up there in age where he's getting tired from these clinches and things like that. You can kind of get to him at this point now with that. Barrial, 33. I don't necessarily know if he's going to improve much more at this point. It seems like he tried to use more of a footwork and technique game plan in this one. It didn't work for him. So back to the drawing board for Barrial, but that was probably one of the worst fights on the card. And this next fight, we had Movsar Evloev. He took on Arnold Allen, and man, this was a close fight too. This was another fight that I thought, and this one, not a lot of people were with me, but I thought Allen won this fight, man. I don't know what you guys thought, but first round, really close. I mean, the first 3.5 minutes, Allen was winning the fight. He was looking clean. He was jabbing him up. He was landing some decent shots, pointing him. And then Evloev got all those mat returns and the takedown at the end of the first, but he didn't really do much damage or do much of anything with the takedown. So I personally gave that round to Allen. Then round 2, Evloev dropped him, was pretty dominant. The third round, I thought Allen won that round. So I gave that fight to Arnold Allen personally, but it was really close. I know a lot of people said that Evloev won that fight. So what do you guys think? Do you guys think that I'm crazy thinking that Allen won that one? I don't know. It was a good fight either way. I think both these guys are obviously top 10 clearly in the division. They could compete with top 5 guys. Evloev 18-0. It's time for him to fight someone in the top 5. Arnold Allen, 2 losses in a row now for him, so I think he's going to have to fight someone like top 10 to top 15. I think he'll probably get the win and get back in the mix. I still think Allen's going to be around. I mean, the guy's still only 29 years old, showed improved takedown defense, improved scrambling ability in that first round. That was super impressive. And Evloev, the guy's striking is getting better. He obviously dropped Allen. He was able to hang in there. He ate a lot of body shots in the third round. And his takedowns and his wrestling is just unbelievable. He's not necessarily the most dangerous guy. I mean, 8-0 with 8 decision wins in the UFC, but he's going to be around and he's going to be a force. I don't necessarily know if I see him getting the title. I mean, do you guys think Evloev is going to be UFC champ? What do you guys think in the comments? But he's on his way, man. He's going to be fighting a huge fight next, so props to Evloev, and he's moving on. And this next fight, I thought this was a really fun fight. I thought it was back and forth. Armfield won the first round, but I felt like Katona won this fight too. I thought the judging was a little off on this fight. Put in the comments, I mean, do you think that the judging was correct or some of these fights are incorrect? I mean, I thought Katona won the second and third. The second was close, though. I mean, Armfield was doing a really good job jabbing, kind of keeping the distance, pot shotting. Katona landed some big punches, and Katona was trying to land that left hook, and he was trying to go 3-2 and then mix in the takedowns. And in the third round, he dominated that round. Kind of what I suspected. I felt like Katona was going to get better as the fight went on. Maybe he just turned it up a little bit too late. It seemed like he was trying to get the takedowns at the end of the rounds, whereas I would have pushed for the takedowns a lot more and really tried to make that higher part of your game plan instead of striking with Armfield. He's a really high-level, slick boxer. But high-level fight from both guys. I mean, I think that they're both kind of fringe top 25, top 30 guys. Armfield still needs some more, in my opinion, cardio, and I think he needs a little more experience against certain higher-level opposition. And Katona, this is a big loss for him because he's a little older. He just had a lot of momentum coming off winning the Ultimate Fighter, being the first guy in UFC history to win it twice. And this just totally stalls momentum, losing to a prospect that's kind of probably a lot lower in the world rankings than he was. So for Katona, he needs to rattle off like 3 wins in a row. He needs to really come back hard from this if he wants to get a chance to get back in the mix. And for Armfield, this is a big win. I mean, 27 years old, still kind of building up his experience and was able to beat a guy like Katona. So Armfield, I would still kind of give him another top 25 guy next. I wouldn't jump him into the top 15 because I think he still needs some experience, like I said. But he's looking really good. I think he's a high-level prospect. And Brad Katona, I still think he's a good fighter. I still think he could compete with some higher-level guys in the weight class. It's just this was a close fight, and it didn't go his way. So tough night in the office for Katona. Good fight for Armfield. Great win. And I think Armfield's going to move up. Katona will probably fight someone similarly ranked to him. And I think Katona could still win and get back in the mix for a second UFC run. But this wasn't a good start. And for Armfield, I mean, I think that if he can get another couple wins and keep getting better, we could see him in the title picture or top 10 in the near future. And this next fight, too, this was a fight that I had a bad read on. I mean, I wasn't super confident in Jourdain. Ended up putting a bad bets on him where I bet small units, like 0.25 units, but I bet on him to win by sub and him to win in the round 3. I really shouldn't have done that because I wasn't super confident that he was going to get the job done, but it was a split decision, but I don't really think it was a split. I thought Sean Woodson clearly won. I think that the first 2 rounds he was pretty dominant with his length, with his range. He was defending the takedowns. You could even argue he won all 3 rounds. Jourdain turned it up in the third a little bit like he usually does, but just never really got going, never landed clean. I thought Woodson was able to use his length and kind of his style. His takedown defense looked good, even though Jourdain isn't a wrestler. Woodson, just with his height, is really hard to take down, it seems like, for a lot of guys. So I feel like both these guys are kind of still middle tier in the UFC. I don't see Woodson, breaking into the rankings or being able to beat many ranked guys or guys close to the rankings. And same thing goes for Jourdain. They're just kind of fun action fighters at this point to me. Jourdain, I think he at one point had some ability to maybe move up in some people's eyes, but now he's been in the UFC for quite a long time, and he's kind of stalled a little bit in this position of kind of top 40 level guys. So I feel like it's kind of where they're at, and maybe we'll see a different level in these guys' careers where they both move up, but I think they're going to struggle when they get up into that top 15, top 25, but anyone below that, they'll be able to have competitive fights and probably be able to get the victory. So good, decent fight from both these guys, but I thought that it wasn't a split. I thought Woodson clearly won, so maybe give Woodson a test for his next one, see if he could surprise me and beat a guy that I don't think he can beat. And for Jourdain, put him in another fun fight like this one and see if he could produce the first fight that went to decision on the card, and I disagree with this decision. I had a bet on CD, so maybe you could say that I'm a little bit biased, and I do have to probably rewatch the fight, but I felt like Serhi CD did enough to win. I thought he won the second round and the third round, but it was a close fight. I mean, Ramon Tavares did exactly what he did in the first fight, and it's kind of interesting, if that first fight wouldn't have had the early stoppage, maybe we would have saw a war like that. But amazing fight from both these guys. That's first and foremost. You got to give a shout out. I mean, Tavares, the slick movement, counter-striking, was landing clean, landing heavy. Rocked Serhi, really busted him up, broke his nose, hurt his eye. But CD was just undeterred. He had great cardio, and he had great ability to get hit, keep coming forward. He even got dropped a couple times and was able to get right back up. And he stayed in Tavares' face. He was mixing in kicks, trying to cut off the cage, and was really high volume. And I felt like he kind of took over the fight in the second and third round. I mean, they were both close rounds, and Tavares had the bigger shots, singular shots, but he was throwing a lot of singular shots, whereas CD was walking him down. He had the ring generalship, and he was throwing combinations. He was throwing more volume, and I felt like CD should have edged it on the scorecards. I thought it was kind of crazy that Eric Colon gave Tavares the round in round 2. I mean, I know that he dropped CD in that round, but CD put out way more output, had him hurt on the feet on multiple occasions, and kind of had him teetered out and looking tired and going into the third round. So I thought CD deserved to win that fight, but shout out to both guys. I think that we'll probably see that trilogy down the line because the fight was just really good, and I think that both these guys could compete. Even though bantamweight is a really tough division, Tavares missing weight isn't a good look either, so it's going to be, a tough haul for these guys at 135, but I think they're skilled enough to stick around and be able to potentially move up if they could progress. For Tavares, he's 30, so I think he is kind of at a level where he's going to be at. I don't necessarily know if he's going to really go up higher in the division. I mean, maybe he'll surprise me, but I'll maybe match him up with a guy like Brad Katona or Garrett Armfield, one of those guys on this card. And then CD, I think you got to give him like a UFC debutant, lower level guy. I think you still got to have some faith in CD, and he's a Canadian, so I think you should give him a fight that he can win, get back on track, get some confidence. And I see both these guys probably sticking around in the UFC for at least another good bet for me with cashing on Jillian Robertson to win in round 2. That was pretty good odds there, and Robertson really kind of dominated the fight, did pretty much what anyone expected to do. I mean, Viane, she's a little bit of a quitter, and Robertson was able to get the takedown. She was able to kind of navigate the fast hands from Viane. Viane never really had any submission danger. Jillian did a good job not really being inside her guard. And Viane ended up kind of melting and quitting. Jillian used that pressure, mauled her on the mat like she does to most everyone that she fights, which she gets them down, and eventually TKO'd her in the second round with some nice ground and pound. So Jillian Robertson, I think she's a top 15 girl at 115. She isn't ranked. She had that loss to Ricci her last fight, but I feel like she's top 15. I think if you stack up that division, she's probably one of the 15 best fighters, so she needs to progress up. We're going to see what she does next. For Viane, I really don't know. I mean, she's been in the UFC for a while, just kind of stayed at the level and that she was at when she got in the UFC, never really improved to me, so I'm not sure what you do with her from here, but great win for Jillian Robertson. This next fight, Fog, man, I got to eat some crow on this one. A horrible prediction for me, man, and bet. I mean, I bet on Johan Lainez. I thought he was going to be able to get the knockout before he went to the ground. I mean, I already knew he kind of sucked on the ground, but man, I mean, I wasn't expecting it to be like that. I wasn't expecting Sam Patterson to get his neck snapped out city, shout out to Tony Ferguson, and then just tap the guy out like a scrub. So, really, really horrible fight from Johan Lainez. I mean, I'm still a little bit suspect on Sam Patterson in terms of his durability, his chin moving forward in this division, but he looked impressive, and I definitely feel like he's skillful. It's just if he's going to be able to last defensively with his bad defense and bad chin, but Lainez, I think that's it for him in the UFC. That was his last fight on the contract. Completely shit the bed. Looked horrible. And he was fighting in his home country. He had, things going on his side theoretically before the fight, but it didn't look that way. Just putrid performance. So shout out to Sam Patterson. I think he'll be able to progress and get another kind of lower level guy in the division. And for Johan, I think we had my most confident pick on the card with Jasmine Jasudavicius. She got the job done. It was an absolute mauling. I mean, that was one of the biggest beatdowns in UFC history. The girl landed over 300 significant strikes in a 3-round fight. Couture had really no offense. The third round, she did a little bit better defending some takedowns, and she was able to land a couple shots, but Jasudavicius just dominated her. She dropped her even on the feet. Really was easily way better on the ground, and that ref, man, he was on one, bro. That fool was just ready to see a dead body. Like, he was like Mario Yamasaki that night, letting Priscilla be a warrior, because she ate so many shots. I mean, the guy could have easily stopped it, but ended up Jasudavicius getting that submission in the third round and taking it out of the ref's hands by getting a tap out. So, Jasudavicius, she actually cashed a big bet for me. I had her to win in round 3 plus 1,100. So, shout out to everyone that saw that on the Patreon, cashed out on that. And big win for Jasudavicius. I think it was kind of pretty obvious how that fight was going to go. Priscilla's dangerous with her power, but Jezudavicius is just better everywhere. So did what she had to do. I think she's going to progress into a top 15 matchup next. And Cachoeira, she'll probably stick around and get another fight. I don't know. I mean, she didn't miss weight, and I don't know. Maybe she won't, but I feel like UFC might give her another fight because she's entertaining against certain styles. But I wouldn't be surprised if they cut her either. But good win for Jezudavicius. In this fight, man, Jimmy Flick versus Malcolm Gordon. Tried to tell you guys, I mean, I thought Jimmy Flick was going to get the job done, and definitely had me sweating in the first round. It kind of went how I said. When he gets put on his back, he likes to shell up, and it can look bad. So you could have argued that it was almost stopped a couple times with the ground and pound from Gordon. Gordon had that deep choke, too. But Jimmy Flick ended up almost submitting him at the end of the first round. Then the second round, exactly what I said kind of happened, where Malcolm Gordon does that ugly blitz striking. Jimmy Flick was able to get the back, jumped on the back, snatched the neck, got the choke. So huge win for Jimmy Flick. I think he's obviously a future fade if we're looking at it from a betting perspective, but was able to win the battle of the glass cannons here with Malcolm Gordon. And, man, he continued his career. He did a good job. So Malcolm Gordon, I think that's it for him in the UFC. I don't know where he would go from here. He just lost as a pretty significant favorite to a guy that most people didn't view as UFC level. So Gordon, he had a pretty subpar run in the UFC, but I think that's going to be it for him. And Jimmy Flick, he obviously earned himself another fight. I saw Cody Durden, pining for that rematch, and if they do that, I definitely think Durden would be a good bet there, inside the distance probably. So hopefully they do that fight. But yeah, man, great way to kick off the card. It was a fun fight. It was back and forth, and then Flick got the finish. So shout out to Jimmy Flick. And good fun fight. And then finally, let's talk about our Bet MMA tips results for UFC 297 for the Patreon. And if everyone that was on there, we did pretty well tonight. We won 3.61 units, actually 4.61 units. I forgot to track Jezudavicius Cachoeira fight. Does not go to decision. But we won 4.61 units, which is a really good night overall. We're going to look to build off that, keep going. And I feel like it could have been a little better. I thought CD won the fight, so could have been 2 units potentially that we didn't lose, and we would have won another 1.3. But overall, if we're looking at the bets that I made and what I think about them, I mean, the Jourdain bets, horrible bets. To me, I pressed those bets. I shouldn't have made them. It was low units risked, but I just feel like, I don't know, I based it too much off what Jourdain has done in the past more than on this matchup, and that was not a good decision. But Jimmy Flick wins by submission. I should have bet more on that. I was confident on Jimmy Flick. It's just something that was throwing me off in terms of betting on him. And when his line really ballooned, I mean, you see I got the 1 unit bet on him at plus 115 too. I should have bet on that, bet more on that. But cash good on that Jimmy Flick fight. And then obviously for Robertson winning in round 2, that was good. Round 3, we lost that one, but no big deal there. Bueno Silva by decision, horrible bet. CD by KLTK, I don't think that was the worst bet in the world. I mean, it had potential there. And then Johan, one of the worst bets I made all year, maybe the worst bet I made of the year, so terrible. But 2 weeks in a row, man, 2 weeks in a row, we're profitable. We got some more bets going on tomorrow for Fury FC, so if you're not at Patreon, you can go become a free member, and you can check out those bets that I do got up there right now for free. Going to put up a couple more, and then at the end of this month, guys, I'm going to be going back to paid Patreon, so if you guys got the free membership, you're going to have to start picking a tier and supporting to get that access. But we're going to keep giving winning bets, keep making some money, so make sure to join the team. Thanks for watching this recap video, guys. Hit the like button. Be back breaking down another fight card soon, and I'll talk to you guys later.